Hi, Nhat. Tell us a bit about yourself. What's your
Hello.
life in a nutshell?
Hi, my name is Nhat and I'm from Quang Nam. I was born and raised in Vietnam, and then I actually went to school in Vietnam went to university in Vietnam for 3 years and then quit. Came to the US. Went through my whole education, community college to college, and then started working in finance. From there, I went to my dual MBA at MIT and the MPA at Harvard Kennedy School. Since then, I've been working in tech, currently living in San Francisco. So has been a lot of changes in my life in the last 14 years being in the US. As a now, kind of people call me Vietnamese American now. I still consider myself Vietnamese, but we'll see.
Lovely. You said you went to school and college in Vietnam, and
Yes.
then what happened?
I went to University of Economics in Ho Chi Minh City for 3 years,
Mm,
and then in the second semester of the third year, I got to know this program. It's called Work and Travel Program. So a friend of mine did that program, and they came back and they shared about it. And this program gave me the opportunity to go to the US and work for four
mm,
months during the summer, and then come back to Vietnam. So for me, that was a great opportunity because I would be able to work, earn money, experience life in the US for 4 months, and I've never left the country before that. So I decided to take on that opportunity. And then when I was in the US, I realized that there are ways that I could study abroad without spending a ton of money that my family did not have. And
mm.
so I decided to apply for a community college in Boston. And when I got in, and went back to Vietnam. Okay, that's it. I wanted to go to the US and study. And I used the saving that I made during the summer. Also, because it's a community college, it's a lot more affordable than a normal college or university in the US. So that was the transition. And I think that's one big question of as I talk to my friends that who's like, oh, why did you decided to leave a university in Vietnam after 3 years already? Everyone told me that I was crazy to make such a decision.
Mm.
And I could have stayed in Vietnam, finished that, and then go to the US. But I felt like 4 months in the US, work and travel in the US, I grew so much and I learned so much about myself. And I wanted this, like, the development that I felt like when I was in Vietnam, and I didn't feel the sense of freedom that because I was living with my family, and it just a bit more constraints for me in terms of the way that I want to run my life. I felt like would be a great chance for me to actually rebuild my life the way that I wanted. So I think the growth aspect was where I found
Yeah.
like the biggest motivation at the time.
Such a story of risk taking as well and of determination. So was it like you put your studies on pause in Vietnam, or was it you went to the US knowing that you couldn't return?
I didn't put on pause. Actually, I just quit.
Mm, wow. And how did that decision making feel like in terms of, how scary it felt?
At the time, it was scary, but somehow I was 20 at the time,
Mm,
crazy, young, ambitious, driven, and you don't know what is the other side kind of idea. I mean, but you
mm.
have such so much confidence that you will make it happen. And I felt like that
And you
was
did?
me at the time. And I was more excited about the opportunity to learn and grow and build my life
Mm.
than the fear that I had. So that was an interesting time. And of course, there were times that I cried. It was like, oh my God, like I left my family and things like that. But looking back, like it's also the time that I
Yeah.
felt like I had such big dreams, and I like there are many times that I reminded myself that I was living the dreams that I had. So I would say like more on the
Great.
excitement rather than the fear.
It worked out, but we can talk about your progression afterwards. I would love to know sort of how did your parents or your family think about this decision, and how did they impact that decision for you?
Yeah, my parents were quite afraid for me to, go leave the family and go to study in another country, especially like Boston is such a cold place. I still remember my sister told me, as you put your head into the freezer and you know how that cold that feel. But I think one important factor that helps my family to feel a lot less scared about my decision was that I came to the US. I was here for 4 months and I made some connections, and I also applied to schools, and I grew a lot during that time. And so from my parents' perspective, like they really changed a lot in terms of thinking about can I handle it or not. And the 4 months gave them the confidence that I would be able to handle the things that will come at me in the future when I study in the US.
Great. And then you went on to do the dual degree, you said. How did that come about? How hard did you work? And it seems that it has worked out for you, but can you walk us through that process?
Yeah. So when I was in undergrad, I went to Mount Holyoke and I did a double major in math and economics. And I always have this passion in economic development. And I was thinking of doing a degree in international development or economics. That's more of like it's something that I'm very interested in. When I was, but my work before the dual programs was always in finance, and there's also interest in like exploring the business side on the operations and business building aspect. So I decided to combine like the personal passion on like economic development, and then the professional interest on the business side. And that's how I decided to do the MBA and the MPA. So MPA is a Master in Public Administration. It's a very policy-focused program. It was a hard 3 years, but it's not, I would say academically, I don't think it's like too crazy. As you know, MBAs, it's not as crazy work as like you go into PhD. I have my friends who do PhD, like study like crazy. But the two programs that I'm doing, like very much on like the administration aspect. And so you work on projects. It was super busy, but it's not like writing papers and like doing homework problems and things like that. So like there's multiple aspects of the work that are not just studying. I think it was quite stressful at times, but overall, it was a great experience for me to get both like the understanding of the business side and the public sector side as well. And also there's more of I would say, soft skills and hard skill. I wouldn't say hard skill, actually. Both are very soft skills, but I learned a lot on like negotiation, presentation, and other more on the soft skills aspect at the Kennedy School than from the MBA. MBA is like I studied other things like strategies and other business cases and things like that. So it's very different flavors.
Love it. And so what was life like as an international student from Vietnam for you in the US?
It's very different depending on the time and the phases of my life when I was here. At first, it was extremely hard because I didn't speak English well. And I'm still trying to improve my English now. But like I had to prepare extremely well of the material before I went to classes. I felt like after each class, I felt like my brain was going to explode because I was like trying to understand what they were talking about. But then when I went to college, that was like a few years after. So then like I could understand things a lot better. Still, like the English barrier is still a problem in many ways. At the same time, there was one professor that I had during community college that gave me a lot of compliments because he said that it was the way I think and analyze the context of the problem that he gave more than like the specific grammars or spellings and things like that he focused on. So it gave me a lot of confidence in terms of communication, but also, of course, like there's always things that I can improve in terms of how to communicate effectively in English. There's another phase when I was working right after college. I do feel like during that time, I was working in wealth management. And so interacting with a lot of clients that who come from wealthy background, and sometimes like from the beginning they would say like, oh, they had some problems of to understand me. Like I took a coaching lessons and things like that. But I wish it was like if I was born in the U.S., even a Vietnamese born in the U.S., or I was in the U.S. earlier, I think would have been a lot easier. But overall, it didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do. Then like even when I was doing the dual program, none of my friends really told me that they had problem understanding me as a Vietnamese person. But I would say that there's not many Vietnamese in my programs. And also like as you go work in organizations, in certain professions, you don't see other people like you. So it's really nice to see a lot of other Vietnamese professionals around and connect and learn from each other.
Oh, thanks for sharing. I think it's something we often forget or sort of underestimate how difficult it is for a non-native speaker to, compete with people of native language levels. It's an additional layer of difficulty that we have. And then really still need to be performing at the same level, and sort of people are not really aware of that additional barrier. And it comes with sort of insecurities as well, right?
Oh, totally.
That is also an additional factor as well. So great that you overcame it. Very impressive. Can you sort of walk us a bit through your career journey, especially sort of post-graduation? What happened then? You went into finance, right?
Yeah. In the last, I think it was after the first semester at Mount Holyoke College, and then I got an offer from Goldman Sachs. So I went to work in the operation division in Salt Lake City.
Which city was that?
Operations division in Salt Lake City. It was a lot of learning. It was kind of funny for me to like working in the big corporations and wearing like all professional clothing, which I haven't actually done it for a while. Now working in tech.
Just quickly interrupting you there, how did you decide to go to Goldman Sachs in Salt Lake City? What was that decision-making process like, and what motivated you to go there and for this company?
So actually, when I was at Mount Holyoke, I got interested into like I studied economics. So like I did a lot of research on economic situations and the impact of financial crisis on the economy. It would be interesting to work in finance and understand how things work in that field. And a friend of mine interned at Goldman, and she shared with me about the experience there. She did an intern in Salt Lake City, and she mentioned how they are like expanding the office in Salt Lake City. So that would be like a great opportunity to join an expanding office. And so that's the office I applied, and then worked there for a year. There was other things that I didn't feel like it was. I would say, if I think about it, if I was super successful in operations, would I feel like I achieved what I wanted to achieve? I didn't feel that sense of excitement when I was thinking about it. And there was other reasons as well. But I ended up decided to leave Goldman, and then came back to Boston and joined a family office in Boston. One part of the family office was like I did learn a lot on the CFA exam, because I didn't learn finance during college. So I wanted to learn it, but I also wanted to have something concrete to say that like I have learned it. So I signed up for the CFA and I passed the level 1. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm leaving to do something that's more aligned with the material that I learned in the CFA. And so the CFA is very much on like the portfolio management. And so going to a family office was more aligned to that interest and more intellectually stimulating for me.
And you said you sort of learned a lot of things while Goldman, and sort of that transition to Boston CFA. What were sort of some of the things you learned from yourself?
Yeah, I would say that 1 year at Goldman has significant impact on the way that I operate. I could see myself doing things a lot more professionally, like the way that I talked, the way that I work on a problem. I had like a faster speed on things in terms of like executing anything, like a problems in my life or any problem at work, because I had a lot of work and I wanted to get things done. Also because Goldman is a very, how to explain it? It's like very, very professional. It looks like it's traditional finance. When I joined the family office, they even told me like I was like the most well-dressed person from the beginning because I was like, coming from that background. I changed my way of dressing after a while. But I was still in finance, but family office is a very different environment as a like big corporation at Goldman Sachs where everyone is, it's more like a big machine operation.
Great. The professionalism, I think, is something a lot of us learn when they join the workforce for the first time and then see how things are working and things are operating for full-time professionals, right?
Yeah.
So what happened then after family office for you?
So when I was at the family office, I was thinking about where the future lies. During that time, I started a nonprofit to help students in Vietnam and Nepal to go to school because it's more aligned, it's something that I thought about for a very long time, even when I was in Vietnam. I wanted to grow more outside of the finance family office role. It was a small one, so like I don't see like a big career trajectory there in terms of what is my next leap, the growth that I would have. And so I decided to leave and do the dual program. And my company was super supportive of that decision. So I was quite lucky there. And yeah, so that was, do you want me to talk through my time that I already talked about my time at the post. My last year, actually, I had like a semester at MIT and then semester at HKS, but also did a lot of reflection. And I read a lot about economic development. A few things that I thought in mind was like there is this general theme of how technology has a significant impact on a country's economic development. And either that is on like building cars and then they've been building phone in South Korea, in China as well. So there's like this aspect of industrializations and how countries build themselves, and how my background before was like always in finance. How do I build myself in a way that I can actually have a larger impact on that front, on economic development? At first, I thought it was like I've never studied computer science. I did not know anything about computer until I was 18. So that was, I felt like it was not the path. But then I decided, I was like, why not try it out? And I got into like fintech side because I work in finance and there is something like adjacent area. So fintech is really interesting, though there's a lot of problems with fintech nowadays. When I graduated, I decided to join Autonomous to help them launch an app for people to work from anywhere, and then moved into the e-commerce side. So I learned a ton from that time, and it was really exciting to work with a team on launching an app within 3 months. And it was my first time ever. My role was like a head of project, was more including like making partnership happens, doing operations, marketing, and also the PM role. And I absolutely loved that time.
Was this in San Francisco already?
No, I was in New York. So we were trying to launch the app in New York, but we decided to close out the app because the pandemics continued lasting for a longer time. And then I moved to the e-commerce side. It was quite challenging in a way that I was in New York and then everyone else in the team was in Vietnam. So I had calls from like 9 p.m., sometimes gone to 2 p.m. It happened quite often. So it was quite harsh on me. And
what company was this that you are based in New York? Was the target market in Vietnam or the team in Vietnam?
So the team, most of the team members were in Vietnam. The target market was in New York. That's why I was there.
So is it a Vietnamese company?
Yes, Autonomous is a Vietnamese company. Actually, it's registered in the US. So it's not a Vietnamese company. It's a US company. at the time, the founder was living in Vietnam and hired a lot of people in Vietnam. And that was really cool to see, actually. And then from there, a friend of mine asked me to join the startup that he was building in crypto with the focus on stable currency. And so I joined him to work on the stable currency focusing on Latin America. There's a large population of Venezuelans that didn't have access to stable currency. And so there's a significant economic impact there. So that was, I joined right after Autonomous. It was a ton of learning. And as you all know, the crypto market collapsed. So as well as the app that I was working on, or the company that I was working with, did not collapse, of course. But there's a lot of pivots, a lot of pause, a lot of blockers that prevented us from launching the product we wanted. And the one part of the business that I was working on, we couldn't move forward at the time. So back May last year, I decided to leave. Took a few months just to explore. And a few months later, a friend of mine connected me with the current company that I am at now. It's called Convai. It's an AI company. We have a developer platform for building 3D AI characters. So I've been there since September last year. And now looking back, I would say 3 years out of school, going from knowing that I would be able to work in tech, or didn't even think about working in tech, to be working in very frontier areas. So a lot of learning, it's a lot of fun, and I am excited to learn more and develop myself so that I can contribute more.
Very exciting. And going back a bit, what do you wish you had known when you were starting your career now, looking back?
If I could have changed it, I would say I would study economics and computer science. And then after that, I would go to the Bay Area.
Right away.
Instead of going to work in finance. But yeah, anyways, who knows?
And what do you think is you'd say you learned a lot. What do you think is one of the most important lessons you've learned throughout your career?
I think there are times when I didn't get what I wanted. I felt like I failed so hard. But one thing that I keep seeing is that if a door is closed, another door is open, as long as I keep my North Star of what is important for me. So I will always build the next direction. There's a book that I read. It said that people plan things and say, oh, you're going to get to A or B or C. But some other times, there's another way of approaching career, is that you just work on things that are interesting for you and then see where it takes you. You don't know the future. You just work on things that are exciting and interesting, and then you just make the next step. There's more of that in my career. In the second part of my career, I approach it more on the explore aspect and learning, and then just do the things that are interesting. Because at the end of the day, if you are interested in the problem, then you will be doing your best and have a much stronger motivation. You not only learn about this narrow area in order to do the work, but you wanna do something more great, something much bigger. That gives space the innovation aspect on what you build, on the career that you lead. I think that will help a lot with the satisfactions.
That's a great insight. I do think your career reflects that very well as well. And the world nowadays is so fast in how it changes and so complex, and so you cannot plan your career. This is something I read as well. It's don't plan your career because you will only limit yourself. Better build up skills, universal skills, strong skills, and then let it take you where your curiosity takes you, right? And then, like you said, whatever hard problems you face or challenges you face, if you build up those skill sets, then you will give it your best, and you will thrive in whatever you do, and you just go where the the wind takes you. And I think that's sort of the way to operate nowadays. It's very forward looking. So that's the scary part. You cannot really plan it out so much, but you got to have some level of conviction and also a bit of judgment through experience to know what are like potentially the good moves to take.
Yep.
And that comes with experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's two references that I have. One is from this person that I know. He is the father of my former manager at the crypto company. He came from a very powerful, wealthy family in Venezuela. He owned banks in Venezuela before. So like super wealthy, came from a super rich family. And there were so many things happen in his life. And he met so many people as well. And one thing that he told me, that people who became successful, they know how to adapt regardless of what situation. And that was fascinating because life always throws things at you. And if you can adapt, you can move on, you can go ahead, like you will move. And then the second reference is a book about this woman who's super good at playing poker. Is that poker or making bets or something? And she said like approaching life as like with all the information you have at this time, make a bet on that decision. So like you don't know all the information. A lot of time you don't have all that information. And when you look back, it's like, oh, I regret I make that decision, but it's like that's all the information you have. So you make the bet, regardless of how it turned out, you just adapt and make the next move on your career. You don't know when the next good turn is going to be, but always ready in order to fight.
I love that. And, just to add on that, sometimes we see options or decisions or potential path are sort of set, and now we need to choose the best one. But, a more ownership or more high agency way to see it is also, I just choose the best given the information that I have now, and then I will make it the best.
Yes.
Right. And that's, I think, sometimes a better way to see life, because life will always be like that. You will always have options that are, imperfect to evaluate, and you cannot know what the future will bring.
Yes.
But what you can do is just take control of the situation, choose for the best that you think right now. Sometimes that involves an element of gut and trust. But then if you decide, then, go all in and give it just your very best, and then you make it the best decision, because there is an extent to which you can shape the world in reality, right? And so just choose and then give it all, and don't give up for the first time at least, and really give it a fair chance and really lean in, right?
Yeah. And I think there's one part about like having this North Star of like what you are interested in, and like what Steve Jobs, like you cannot draw the connections looking forward, but you can draw it looking backward. If you follow this interest, usually you have like certain interests, and you can see where it takes you looking back. And for me, it's like I do see like my decisions have been always every step of the way. I was like, is this helping me to think about more economic development aspect? So that's like more of my passion. And it's either like, for example, with this current company, I never didn't think about it or didn't know about this before. But this is like very much a strong application and education that I am passionate about. So, and this is connected to go back into the economic development aspect too. So the human talent aspect. I want to live the life that in 80 years old, I look back and I was like, I did live my life. I didn't live someone else's life.
Yeah, one way I think about this to make decisions is also sort of, how can I maximize impact, but also minimize regret? And sort of you need to strike that balance, and sort of also think about the side of regret minimization, which is also important, because if you look back and you took a decision that you then feel you should probably have done it, or you should probably have taken that bet, then that regret is probably a bigger loss than staying safe sometimes.
Yes.
Cool. I love this conversation. Maybe quick, almost final question is, when we talk about connecting the dots throughout our life, how do you think, coming from Vietnam and being Vietnamese sort of impacted your career and professional development, both maybe negatively, things that you had to overcome, like language, and maybe good things as well, things that have served you very well.
Yeah, I think on the positive side, I grew up with my grandma telling me stories of my grandpa sacrificing his life for the country. It was super inspiring for me, and also seeing, so you growing up in the central area in Vietnam, seeing so many people went through poverty and lack of access to education and food, things like that. Like I develop a strong sense of passion for economic development, where I see that is the way in order to help people to have better life. So that is like the main theme that has been driving me to grow more, to do more, to contribute more. That impacted my decision to leave Vietnam to come to the US and study, and making a lot of like risky decisions in my life, because I felt like it's aligned with what I felt like this is, higher impact in terms of my growth, that toward that direction that I wanted on the economic development front. And so I think it has been a significant impact in my decisions. On the other side, like of being Vietnamese, coming to the US when I was 20, this English is still challenging. I think I would say that is the English part. The second part would be like the cultural aspect, because there's a lot of times that people talk about the TV shows that I watched growing up, or a bunch of like cultural references that I had no idea. And I didn't have 20 years in the US to learn that. And I was in like the countryside area of Vietnam. It was not even like on the internet. There would be like conversation that I couldn't really join. And like I could join unless we like switch conversation a little bit, but there's certain topics that it will be like I don't have the reference point. I think the biggest barrier would probably just a language.
It makes sense, and it's great to see and to hear from people who've done it, and not only done it but really thrive. And I think that's a very good example of your life, to see how you just push through and really followed your instinct, and really taking the risks, and really just through hard work and through determination, really making it there. Nhat, what's sort of next for you? Any upcoming goals or projects that you're excited about?
Oh, yes. I have been learning how to code and using AI a lot for coding. And I find it super exciting to learn this, so that I can like build many applications for either the business or professional side. I did build an application for work, where I created a web page for generating offer letters. And it felt such a magical experience building something that like even the only person who used it is me right now. But I can see the future where I can build more tools that not just me using it, but other people can use it as well. So it's I think it's that sense of a builder is super exciting for me. And of course, like I'm at a startup, so we are building things all the time, and I love what we're working on. So I think personally we're just like building small tools, and then maybe I will build more of the application on top of what we're building now at Convai.
Exciting, and I see you really live that notion of following your curiosity and learning all the time. It's a never-ending process. Adapt and really see where it takes you. And I do see you also build up a portfolio of very useful skills, right? And very useful mental models and way of operating that makes you also a much more useful professional, and much more, killer in the workforce, I would say, because now you have such a wide skill set, and you are not afraid to jump into any area or any sort of learning, which is very helpful, I think. And then having overcome also the language barriers and all of those makes you, I think, a very, very strong professional now.
Thank you.
Cool. Nhat, how can our members, OV members, connect with you or follow your work?
Oh, they can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just look up for my name, Nhat Nguyen. Or what are other ways? I think I'm on Slack for the Vietnamese Overseas group, and also on
the
WhatsApp.
fellowship. Yeah.
So I'm everywhere basically.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Nhat. Thank you so much. And hope to visit you in San Francisco, or when you come here to Vietnam, then let's catch up.
Awesome. Great talking to you, and hope to see you in person at some point.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Bye.
That's it for today. If you enjoyed this, you will love the OV community. Learn more at overseasvietnamese.com.